Greetings, everyone. This is a shot of whiskey, and I have another false prophet pretending to know what he is talking about regarding MGTOW. This idiot is named Mike Pantile, and no, I don't think that's how you actually say his name. I just don't respect him enough to try. I guarantee this coward will never sit down and talk with any MGTOW, let alone me. They never do, so why should any of them change now? But hey, if by some chance that Mikey finds this video and feels compelled to prove me wrong, I encourage him to. Let's talk this out, like men, if you have the testicular fortitude and if your wife gives you permission. Anyway, you can see here that among his many hilarious self-inserts includes that he is dismantling the red pill. Considering that he has no idea what he is talking about regarding MGTOW, he most likely has no idea what the red pill is. I'm willing to bet that his knowledge goes no further than Fresh and Fit. Maybe Andrew Tate. Oh, and going back to his page, he's a coach. And he's only been on YouTube for half a year. If you're someone who also watches Undead Chronic, then there is a good chance that you've seen him rip this fibber a new one already. The roast took place during one of his live streams, kind of around Halloween, and a few days later he posted it as a separate video. I can provide a link to his roast if you're curious. For those that don't know, he is not a MGTOW, and I think there should be at least one of us to take a crack at this jack. Well, here I am. Now, I should point out that JD Miles, a fellow MGTOW, did a response to a more recent one of Mikey's videos where he lies some more about us. I'll provide a link to that response as well. Now, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if JD does a response to this video, the one that I'm responding to, if he hasn't already. And there may even be one or two more MGTOW out there that have done so that I am unaware of. And I hope that's the case. I want us all to be talking about this coward who wants us to shut up if we dare to disagree with him. Well, enough rambling on my part. Let's dive into this. Oh, one more thing before we do. I can't say for certain when this video will come out. My goal is by Wednesday the 15th because I'll be out of town for about a week. Plus, my son will be tagging along, so I can't say how much work I'll be able to bust out for y'all. Depending on how things go, perhaps my son and I can make something together. We'll wait and see on that. Okay, let's go ahead and get back to Mikey.
So men are going their own way, meaning they're opting out of marriage and relationships altogether more than they ever have before. And so in thinking about this,
he's not thinking about this. He's venting. He's complaining because he knows that he cannot take advantage of us.
It made me realize just the state of masculinity that we're in the world right now. We're obviously in a crisis of masculinity. And with that comes these men that are kind of looking at the overall marriage landscape and divorce rates and divorce laws and are thinking, okay, this is too risky for me.
The risk is one reason for the decline. We'll cover more on that later, but for now, I want you guys to think about the word risk, because that's the main thing he is acknowledging.
Okay, this is too risky for me. I'm going to take a step back and I'm not actually going to do this. I'm going to pursue, my own life, my own faith, fitness, finances, whatever, but I'm just going to leave women and family out of the equation altogether. Guys.
Okay, Mikey, what is your non-biblical take on this?
Guys, this is a loser defeatist mentality.
Says the beta male who's begging other men for money. Guess what, Mikey? We've all heard that before, but we've never heard a logical reason for why that is, nor a logical reason to turn around and return to the pussy plantation.
Okay, for one key reason. Okay, well, there's probably a myriad of reasons, but for one key reason, we forget that we as men are designed for risk.
No, we are not designed for risk. That is too vague of a statement. But then again, this tattooed worshiper of vagina does not understand that.
Women will be the death of you someday.
So yes, marriage is a risk, of course. It's like you're putting a loaded gun to your head and asking the woman not to pull the trigger for the entirety of your life. I understand that risk, but we forget that we're built for risk.
We are not built for the risk of having someone else put a gun to our head for some non-existent gender code. Why should we allow ourselves to give a woman the opportunity to put said gun to our heads? And how does that benefit our offspring?
We forget that we've had ancestors. All of us have this thing in common, is that we all have ancestors that have killed another man for their own freedom or in war or for whatever reason.
Those examples are us risking our lives for some sort of benefit. You want us to risk ourselves for slavery. There is no benefit to what you are demanding.
For us to be here having this discussion today, we're so insulated and so comfortable and so risk averse that we forget about this.
Nobody is forgetting that our ancestors fought wars to protect their homes, their countries, or their existence. What you do not understand is that those wars, which in many cases our ancestors had no say in the matter, are not the same thing as considering marriage in the 21st century. They do not apply to us in the here and now. I'm not going to consider what my ancestors in Scotland did 500 years ago when it comes to whether or not I'm going to put my trust in a woman and the wonky legal system of my state.
We're so comfortable in the West with all of our opulence and Uber Eats and cheap entertainment and pornography and all of these things that we forget that we're built for risk.
Okay, let's say that he is partially correct about us being built for risk. This does not mean that we should take every risk imaginable. An insignificant risk, or a risk that yields no benefit, is not a risk worth taking. Here's an example. It is a risk to go skiing while blindfolded along a mountainside with lots of cliffs. Should I take that risk? I am a man after all, and Mikey thinks we're all designed to take risks.
Now, I'm not just saying go out and marry anybody. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is that we have to understand that with this being built for risk part, we also have to understand what we're getting into too. Okay?
Yes, and we understand this. We have decided that it is not worth it, just like skiing while blindfolded. You don't want to agree with this because you worship your wife and my money instead of God.
And this is why all throughout my Instagram content, my YouTube content, even my podcast, nobody freaking cares. We talk about you want to give yourself the best chance at, having a successful marriage.
And that would be to not have one. You cannot come up with a logical counter-argument. All you have is whining and insulting, just like an emotional woman who thinks lighting green candles will produce money.
So what does that mean? That means not having sex with the woman that you're dating, that you're trying to court to marriage, so you can see her for who she really is. I've said this probably 35 times on this channel so far, and I'm going to continue to shout it from the rooftops because it's an important point.
So we're finally getting into a religious talking point, one that does not apply to all MGTOW. However, Mikey never claimed to be reaching out to all MGTOW, only the ones who are, or claim to be, followers of Jesus. As far as just us, I do not disagree with him on this point. After all, it is one of many reasons why I haven't had sex in several years. Most MGTOW, Christian or not, do agree with him on this point, but he does not realize that because he does not know what he's talking about.
And so let me actually, before I get into that, let me actually pose a question. What is the alternative to a family and to marriage?
Solitude and freedom.
I just hear an echo.
That is because you have your head up inside your colon.
What is the alternative?
Solitude and freedom.
The fact is, gentlemen, there is no alternative, because all the men that I've met that are older men that don't have wives, that don't have families, are pretty sad and depressed men.
Which is, what, 2 people? How many men do you know that did exactly what you claim we all need to do and have had their lives destroyed because of it? More men have deleted themselves over divorce and family court disputes than those who've never gotten their peepees touched. But you wouldn't know that because you are hiding behind your wife.
Not always. There are some exceptions, but we're not using the exception to explain the rule here, guys.
Prove the rule. You are using a small number of men that you allegedly know as your basis for a rule, rather than actual stats or conversations with a MGTOW. And I believe it is because you are a coward and a scam artist.
Most of the time, they are sad, lonely men.
That is only if they have bought into the BS that they have to be married or else they are worthless non-men. MGTOW is about embracing our value and growing as human beings without the shackles of a hag preventing us from being us. I could use some men that I know who never got married and have been happily living their amazing lives and whose only source of agony was when they were with a woman as examples. But I am above that. You using these few men that you know is called an anecdote.
And what's even worse than that is some of them still possess this playboy mentality, like they were in their 20s or in their teens, where they have a harem of women and they see multiple women. That is an empty, disgusting, loser, immature way to live your life as a man.
I have mixed feelings on that, to be honest. While someone of the faith should not live that life, if some men want to do that, then what's wrong with it? On top of that, this is not what it means to be a MGTOW. Most MGTOW, Christian or not, reject doing that very thing. So Mikey, if you had a properly functioning brain, you would realize that you just wasted 14 seconds on nonsense. Then again, you still have yet to make a single valid point.
Okay? Part of being a man is putting yourself in positions of risk.
No, it is not. Men do not put themselves at risk just because they are men. True men only do it when it is necessary, when there is no other option, when doing the opposite is more detrimental than advantageous. You're a fool.
For the betterment of the future, especially for the betterment of your family's future.
The benefit of our futures involves not getting married. If we have a family, we can still take care of them without risking self-destruction by getting married again. Heck, statistically speaking, people who get into a second marriage are more likely to get divorced than bachelors who get into their first marriage. I don't remember the exact stats. It's something like first-time married adults get divorced about 50% of the time, almost always because the woman wants it, while second-timers get divorced about 70-ish% of the time. Men indeed are to be responsible for whatever responsibilities they have, but that doesn't mean we have to try to kill ourselves just so you can get a few $100s from us. Now that I think about it, he may not be aware that many MGTOW, especially the older ones, have been married at least once before. This wouldn't be much of a stretch since he does not understand much of anything else.
So, guys, let me ask you again, what is the alternative to marriage?
Solitude and freedom? What is the point in repeating this question when you know damn good and well that you will not listen to us? Do you even read your comment section? Or are you too scared of the truly masculine men choosing autonomy over bondage?
I understand divorce laws and all that stuff is stacked against us as men. Yes, for sure. We're built for risk.
We are not built for divorce courts and family courts taking away the families that you want us to have. Again, risks without rewards are not logical, not natural, and not acceptable.
And so how we mitigate that risk, how we lower that and give ourselves the best possible chance at success is by finding and vetting a good woman and then marrying her.
Wrong. The best chance at success comes from going MGTOW. You can't have your brains blown out from a gun being fired by a woman if you don't sit at the table and give her the gun to begin with.
It's not a prenup because a prenup is giving you future permission for divorce.
Not exactly. The concept of prenups was birthed from the reality that women divorce men a lot and was intended to provide some form of possible protection for the man should his failure of a wife betray him for money.
Come on, guys. And plus, that piece of paper doesn't even mean anything.
Only because the courts favor women. You're doing more to prove MGTOW to be correct, my dude.
So you want to give yourself a potential out in the future. You're not actually properly yoking yourself to your wife the way that God calls us to. And instead, you're relying on this piece of paper to say that, yeah, my wife's not going to be able to take all my things from me.
Yeah, because in theory, that piece of paper has significance. It is a contract, just like a marriage certificate. They are both, in theory, legally binding, which means they are relevant when it comes to the court system, assuming that the courts were actually fair and not designed to fuck men over for the benefit of the state.
Listen, if she wants to take all your things from you, she's going to be able to do that regardless. That's part of it.
And you are the only male here who is fine with that. We don't want that for ourselves. It is not a worthwhile risk.
We can piss and moan and bitch about the laws, but we can't change them.
Which is why we won't play the game. We understand that we cannot change the laws. That's one of the many reasons why MGTOW is not a movement. Stop conflating us with MRAs. We aren't trying to change the world. We're simply trying to live our lives in peace. Why are you so hell-bent on denying us that right?
You can move to another state or another, for me, I'm in Canada, so it's kind of the same all over Canada.
He's a Kakistani. No wonder why he mindlessly hates MGTOW. He doesn't support individual rights at all. I bet he voted for Trudeau, and I bet he's going to eagerly take the mark of the beast because Daddy Maple Leaf will tell him to do so. And this guy wants to lecture us about biblical masculinity?
Lame. But you move to another state if you're in the U.S., and if you're in Europe, I'm not sure what's going on over there, but you can move to another place, and maybe the divorce laws are less harsh.
So long as you live in a Western country, all marriage is subject to these problems. This is one reason why passport bros are a thing. And if Mikey watches my response video, they are not the same thing as MGTOW. And you're wrong, again. Men can avoid the BS by going MGTOW. That's the point. That's the entire point.
But you're not going to really be able to dodge this because we live in a gynocentric, almost matriarchal society right now.
And you think that's supposed to convince us to forfeit our freedoms because...
Things are in favor of women, for sure. We are walking an uphill battle, swimming upstream with a situation like this.
If there is any man who watches your trash and is thinking about discarding the MGTOW philosophy, I pray that this part, right here, opens their eyes to just how wrong you are.
But again, I ask the question, what's the alternative to a family and children and marriage?
Solitude and freedom. Try being a man and talk with one of us. Learn something rather than fabricate your own answers.
There's no alternative.
MGTOW is the alternative.
And so for the men that are opting out, some of them are still having sex outside of marriage, which doesn't really make sense to me. You're acting like a grown-up teenage boy.
And if you knew anything about MGTOW, you would know that this does not violate the philosophy. But it is something that most of us agree with you on, to a point. Since you want to pretend that God is on your side, even though you do not stand by God's word, I would recommend that you look into King Solomon.
That you are essentially masturbating with other people's bodies.
It's called sex. Unless the hooker is making us melt in her hands, and only her hands, it is not masturbation. It is sex. Having sex with only one vagina for the rest of our lives is not the sole difference between sex and masturbation. Don't intentionally be dishonest because you feel it will strengthen your already sturdy as a fart argument.
Snowmobiles are looking like a
And eventually that's going to lead to your destruction, and you are going to be cast down to hell.
Which again does not apply to the vast majority of MGTOW. Most of us have already decided to give up pursuing sex on top of marriage, and not for the reason you just gave. Well, it is one reason for those of us MGTOW who do follow Christ, but for both us who do and who don't, we do not pursue sexual relations because the pursuit is a distraction and a waste of money, and it is giving into one of our basic animalistic instincts when we are trying to better ourselves.
Listen, I'm a God-fearing man. I firmly believe the teachings of the Bible.
No, you don't. The teachings of the Bible include several passages that validate the MGTOW philosophy, in both testaments, by the way, and some figures in the Bible lived the MGTOW way of life, including Jesus himself.
And so I only think there are two ways for a man to really go, okay?
What you think means nothing.
Listen up. Number one, it's marriage. That's most men are going to fall into this category.
You haven't seen a lot of stats, have you? You haven't read historical studies on the rate of men who died as bachelors, have you? Of course not. Why would you? You don't like to be challenged because you are a weak hypocrite.
Still not listening.
We're built to be leaders of our homes. We're built to be protectors, prophets, providers, meant to preside by our families.
And what you either fail to realize or don't give a damn about is that the world we live in has taken those away, which is one of the main reasons why MGTOW is a thing. But let's hear his other worthless opinion.
But there's also this alternative. If you want to go your own way, if you're one of these men that are like, okay, I'm done, you got to be celibate then.
Which again, you weak little vagina worshiper, already applies to the vast majority of MGTOW.
Yeah, there were people in the Bible that were celibate. There were people in the Bible that did not marry.
Which further proves us right.
Sure, that's the only two paths. Those are the only two paths.
And we have chosen the path of no marriage. Why are you failing to grasp this simple concept? Oh, that's right, scam artist calling himself a coach.
My bad.
Those are the only two paths for men. Most men are built for celibacy.
Yeah, I can agree to that. However, you appear to be oblivious to the obvious reality that a man can work his way to that point. And if he is with God, he can become that which you reject easier. At least that's my opinion. This is more challenging for others to overcome, of course, just like other types of sins and struggles, such as swearing or alcohol abuse. What matters is the pursuit, the attempt, which you will never be able to do if you give up and accept the mark.
Some men are. I know some men that is their life. They live a permanent monk mode. That's the way God had wired them. That's the way that they're meant to serve the kingdom, and that's cool.
And you do not have the authority to dictate who that applies to. I get that you're a Kakistani feminist who wants to strip away our rights, but you really should learn your place. You do not dictate what my walk with the Lord should look like.
Most men are not going to fall into that category, okay?
They can if they want it badly enough. Rome was not built in a day.
Most men would do better by getting married.
Prove it! There's no proof to your claim. You're spewing out nonsense as if it were some undeniable fact. Here, I'll use something that Jesus did quite a bit. An analogy. Fact, the Texas Rangers just won the World Series. What you are doing in your video is claiming that the New York Yankees won the World Series because they have already won 27 in the past, even though Texas won it, and New York didn't even qualify for the playoffs this year. But you don't care to look into it because you don't like professional sports. Here and now, most men would benefit from never getting married. And the reasons, at least some of them, you have already listed and mocked because you want my money. Not today, Judas.
And let's just be real here for a second.
Are you admitting that you haven't been real up to this point?
And a lot of men are concerned about their finances, that, I don't want to lose money, or, it's a lot of pressure to provide for a family. Yeah.
So you've realized that religiously speaking, you don't have a leg to stand on, so now you're going to discuss finances with a limited understanding that is on par with the average feminist. Well, then again, he is a Kakistani.
So married men make more money,
No, they don't.
and married men also have better sex.
That depends on how you define better. It is better in the sense that, assuming she isn't cheating on you, you're not going to get an STD, and you might know what she likes. But it's not in the sense that she owns your balls and won't let you have fun unless she wants it, which could be once every 2 years, and will use this to keep you slaving away.
So if it's about money and about sex, then why wouldn't you just get married?
Because we understand that what you just said is a bunch of nonsense.
Because both of those things are enhanced.
Payments do not automatically increase because you got married. No job in the US or Kakistan automatically gives a man a pay raise just because he tied the knot. Just like how no job in the US or Kakistan automatically pays a man 23% more than a woman because of genitalia. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Mikey here believes in the wage gap too. Not only is he that dense, but he is a Kakistani. Feminazism is their government-enforced religion, after all.
Every single year that I am married to my wife, I make more money.
So? Are you seriously that stupid? You don't get those raises because you are married. You get those because you keep working. Guess what, you tattooed beta? I get paid more each year as well, and I'm not married. Explain that!
Period.
You are wrong. Period. See, I can do that too, and I can do it better because I have facts on my side.
And so if it's about sex, well, you're going to have better sex within the confines of marriage anyways.
Prove it!
I wish him well.
And also divorced men on average make more money than men that have never previously been married.
And it's for the same real reason why your faulty stat is the way it is. You are basing this on a national average, which includes CEOs, almost all of whom are married or divorced. That is a big chunk of the reason why there is this disparity. There's also the fact that these men are most likely fathers, which means that they have more mouths to feed. As such, they have to make their money stretch more, and that's easier to do, in theory, when you're making more, which does not happen because payroll values your offspring. You have to sacrifice more in order to get more. Imagine that! It's just like with the gender wage gap. Typically, when it's just you, as a man, you are less likely to feel a need to work more for money that you don't need. Plus, the money you make is yours and only yours, whereas the husband, father, slave man's money is all of theirs. This also applies to divorced men, as they are far more likely to have to pay alimony and or child support and need to pick up more hours and more money just to survive instead of dying from hypothermia while sleeping in their car. Now, let's do some math because I doubt Mikey understands how numbers work. Let's say that Mikey and I are the same age, with the same qualifications and experiences, working at the same job since the same day. And just to make the math simple, let's say that our annual salary, starting off, is $50K, assuming we work 40 hours a week. Now, unless every aspect of our wages is based on one old-fashioned, anti-law, does-what-he-wants owner who cares more about brown-nosers than work ethics, you won't be getting a pay raise on account of getting married. That's stupid, especially since we live in an era where women can and do enter the workforce, though you might have a job where an employee can beg for a raise or negotiates beforehand, but simply having a family does not mean squat with what the company will consider. For this specific exercise, we'll say that the wife stays at home, which means that between the two of you have 25K, whereas I still have 50. Now, to make up this difference, which may also be impacted by your wife's love for shopping for things that are cute and worthless, which I know there are plenty of husbands that can relate to that, you decide to work more hours, let's say 20. To my understanding, an OT hour typically pays as if you're working a normal hour and a half, so half your time would be worth $25K, plus an extra 50%, you'd be looking at an extra $37.5K on top of your 50, making $87.5K. Half of that, your half, is $43,750 a year, assuming that she allows you to have anything. I'm still at 50. Let's also say that for every year we work there, we get a 10% increase. So after 1 year, your inflated $87.5K becomes $96,250, and my $50K becomes $55K. Sure, $96,250 is more than $55,000, but you also gave up an extra 20 hours per week, 1,040 hours more annually to the company and less to your wife. And the money is still less when you split it by bodies in your home versus mine. $48,125 versus $55K. Now, 1 year later, you're at $105,875 versus my $65K. But now on top of having your wife, you have a baby. Congratulations. 3 people makes almost $35.3K for you, which, let's be real, a good chunk of that is going to your bundle of joy because kids are expensive. Another year, you're at $116K plus $463 versus my $66.55K, and kid number 2 graces your life, which could genuinely apply to you because I've heard you say in other videos that you have kids, meaning at least 2. Rounding up, because I'm nice, would be $29,250 for you, which is less than half of what I make for me and only me. And now you have to look at possibly getting a bigger place and a bigger vehicle. Oh, and are you paying for your children's education? You'd better start saving up now because in 17 years, tuition is going to be... up there. Unfortunately for you, things have taken a turn for the worse in the next year, as half of all marriages tend to do. The missus is unhappy that you are gone all the time, despite you now making over $128K versus my $73,205, because she feels that she is struggling alone to take care of 2 babies that you sired, and don't worry, we'll ignore the possibility that either one of them should be calling someone else daddy. For this exercise, they are yours. She's so unhappy with your absence that she is leaving you because of female logic. Now, you have to pay for both your lawyer and hers, because the courts hate you on account of you having an external urinal stick. You officially lose half your money in alimony. You no longer have that house, which you are still making payments on, but don't worry about your wife. Some other guy will fill the void in a few months. And you have to pay child support, which in my state of Washington would be about $2,300 a month, according to fortress.wa.gov, meaning $27.6K a year rounded down. At best, Mikey, you will be getting to keep about $36,454, which is a pinch more than half of what I am making for just me. So no, you are wrong, and you clearly do not understand how stats work.
And these are all statistics you can go out and look for yourself. These are real things. I'm not just pulling them out of my ass here, guys.
You are, however, misinterpreting them, either because you're a moron or because you're a deceiver, just like Satan. Congrats, you're on par with Lucifer. Enjoy that 666.
So I pose the question, what is the alternative to these things?
Solitude and freedom. Again, solitude and freedom.
Okay, and so the solution is to vet and find a good woman.
Or, because you're too self-absorbed and greedy to accept reality, to choose freedom and not have to worry about this at all.
Not on Tinder, not at the club, not at the bar, is to find a good woman, whether you meet her at church or a library or some kind of community meetup. I don't know.
I don't know, he says. Look, if you don't know, then why should any of us give a flying rat's ass what you think? That simple 3-word phrase has just disqualified every claim you have made in this video.
The Courtship Network, which I'm an affiliate with, I'll leave that link below.
And she,
Of course.
that was,
Yes, which is precisely why you dropped that little nugget of insignificant data in there, isn't it? You are giving us another opportunity for you to violate our wallets. Screw your link.
It's up to you to find her, but it's also up to you to vet her properly.
It is also up to me to decide whether or not I want a her in my life, not you, and I have already chosen. I do not, and I refuse to pay you to put me into my own bondage.
Okay? Don't have sex with her before marriage. See her for who she really is. Does she possess all of those qualities?
I do agree that this part is good advice for young men who are foolish enough to want to punish themselves with self-applied shackles, but they also need to know the details for the other option that you pointed out earlier, and given the freedom to make that choice on their own. You know, the option to go monk mode and not give you money, which is why you don't want to divulge that information to your victims, I mean clients. No, wait, victims. Speaking of victims, I'm going to skip the next 20 seconds where he whores off his stupid podcast.
But there's a few facts that remain. Don't have sex with her before marriage, so you can see her for who she properly is. Vet her through, questions and going out together and seeing if she's, wife, mother, homemaker material. And then past that, it's going to still be a risk.
And you still have yet to explain why that risk is so great that it is worth the sacrifice. Why should I ski with a blindfold on? Why should I play Russian roulette with a woman holding the gun? Why should I give you my money?
But the whole point of this video is, dude, what is the alternative?
Dude, solitude and freedom. Asking the same question over and over again does not change or negate the answer.
You want to be celibate? If that's how God has built you, if you're truly that man, which you probably aren't if you're watching this video, then go do that.
Then stop shaming men who make that logical decision.
But most men are built to be leaders of families, meant to be selfless servants to their families, and meant to take that risk because we as men are built for risk.
Even if we were built for risk, an idea that you have incorrectly clung to, we are also built to think logically, to analyze risk assessments. We are also built to become better, different, and self-reliant. You have said nothing of value.
So going your own way seems like a loser mentality.
Only to hypocritical beta male cucks who worship Lilith. Like you.
And a cop-out for something that can really fulfill you as a man and change your life and change society for the better.
How? Stop being a cowardly little bitch and explain how. Factually, how?
Why does he ask you how?
We need stronger fathers. We need stronger husbands. We need stronger, more faithful and virtuous men at the helms of their families to change this degenerate culture around us.
Start with feminism first. I refuse to die for your retarded bullshit narrative that can be easily debunked by anyone with an IQ above 70.
That's all I'm going to say.
You are a waste of time, and only a fool would want to be coached by you. I'm certain this video is going to be quite long compared to my usual content, so if y'all need to find something to help you relax, I understand. Just don't abuse the alcohol, okay? It will abuse you back after all.